My mom sent me the meow meow cat. They sent me my meow meow.
That's it. I'm telling you, yo.
Hey, I'm BB Futurology, and this is my Big Brother Season 4 Top 10 Moments. Obviously, spoilers ahead, don't say I didn't warn you. And if you like this video, consider subscribing, because I'm making a whole lot of content just like it. So let's cut to the chase and dive right in. Number 10. So this season's twist was called the X Factor. That's because Julie, she sent 8 people into the house that were complete and total strangers. But that was pretty short-lived, because shortly thereafter, she said, hey, 5 of your ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends are about to come in the house. Early on the first night, Scott and Amanda are already fighting. They're trying to be jokey about it, but you can tell that there's some bad blood between them. And I'm no psychologist, but Scott seemed straight up bipolar. One minute he's saying he loves Amanda, the next he's saying he hates her and he hates everyone else. And Scott just ends up saying some really crazy stuff and starts yelling at people.
Enough with the breadcrumbs. Can you put the cheese and macaroni in the damn oven? Oh God, I'm the biggest loser in the house! Ice cubes.
Then everything goes downhill pretty quickly and Scott just straight up loses it.
Scott, please go to the diary room.
You come in and get me. Come in and get me. Can't handle me. It take 3 of you.
Then Scott calls a house meeting to try to apologize to everyone. He mentions he was never able to move on ever since him and Amanda broke up. And then Scott goes into the DR and production tells the house that he wasn't coming back. And honestly, thank God, because this guy was really losing it in the house. Number 9. Now this one wasn't that big of a moment, but it was so rare that I just had to include this. So there's a live HOH, and you know they're on a time crunch. Julie's always speeding people up and whatnot. And they have the tiebreakers always built in so that they can keep the show on track to make sure they get their commercial breaks in. Julie asks for the combined weight of a certain group of people that took part in a competition that happened earlier in the season, and Justin and G both answer 700, which is closest to the answer. So they need a second tiebreaker to break the first tiebreaker. So they ask them, how many days old is Amanda? You can tell they're trying to do the math, but Julie is just rushing them. And it's kind of funny because you can see that maybe production didn't even know the answer and was doing the math really quickly themselves, because Julie says this.
Okay, the correct answer is 9,000 plus.
And you can tell they were pressed for time because Julie just signs off at the end of the episode without the usual notes that she has about the upcoming episodes.
From outside the Big Brother house, I'm Julie Chen. We'll see you again on Friday night. Have a good one.
Number 8. This one's kind of sad because G was walking around the house and not being his usual self, and Robert asks him about it. Robert assumes that it's something about him missing his girlfriend outside the house, but G tells him it's actually the anniversary of his father's death. G informs everyone he wants to do a ceremony for his dad that he usually does with his family at home. So what he does is he gathers a picture of his dad, he gets a number of foods and drinks his dad would have loved, and everyone puts their differences aside for one day and helps out in any way they could. I thought it was especially touching when June actually helped out, because it really meant a lot to G, because they were actually together when his father passed. And so even though they were at odds with each other in the house sometimes, he had this link to someone he knew before the game, and it was kind of a very wholesome moment. This moment really hit me, and it had me rooting for G big time. Number 7. So week 4, the X's, aka Dana, Robert, Justin, and G, they were being targeted. Dana ends up going home that week, but week 5 comes along and Justin wins HOH. And if this is not the biggest scene of HoHitis I've ever seen, then I'd be surprised. So the 3 boys were chilling in the HOH room, and they were getting real power hungry. G ends up becoming the bouncer for them. They demand the house guests come in one by one, and only 2 tonight and the rest tomorrow. They get real specific with it. All 3 of them are involved with every game conversation, and it just feels like a shakedown every time someone new comes into the room. And this dynamic basically held true the whole week. And yeah, I think this is definitely the biggest HoHitis I've seen up to this season. And it's not just from one person, but from 3 people. Number 6, Alison and Nathan. Oh, where to start? So in week 3, Alison was on the block, and Nathan ends up winning the power of veto that week. Alison won a luxury comp before the veto needs to be used, and it was basically a date, and she got to bring a person. So she brought Nathan. She's being real flirty with him, and at one point they start making out. But then she lets us know in the diary room that she doesn't have feelings for the guy. She's just using him.
Nathan is just somebody that I am flirting with to win $500,000. Nathan might be the biggest meathead I've ever met in my entire life. He doesn't know what the hell's going on, and he's messing up his game. But in a way, that's good for me because that's going to make him a target before I make myself a target.
So Nathan ends up using the veto on her. Then Justin wins HOH a couple weeks later. Yeah, the HoHitis week. And Nathan is pissed that Alison didn't target Justin when she was HOH. But she doesn't really care about that.
Nathan is not thinking at all, and it's really making me mad now. He's saying because I didn't get rid of Justin last week, that he wouldn't be in the situation he's in right now. Maybe the dumbest move he could have made was to save me. That's fine. I'm still here. I don't care.
And honestly, I love the contrast between when Alison needed help from Nathan and when Nathan needs help from Alison. The show could always use more villains, and she did not shy away from it. Number 5. So June and G, they were another pair of exes. So you could tell that there was some bad blood between them too, but they were secretly working together the whole game, which was pretty impressive. So one time during the HoHitis week, G randomly calls out June for basically no reason. June said something about yo mama to G. Classic. Things really start to get heated and they're yelling in each other's faces.
Shut the hell up!
Shut the hell up.
What the f is wrong with you today? You want beef with me?
What?
Just shut the f up then.
Oh, dude, you're the one. Yo, let me just fight my tongue because you're having an episode.
Well, bite your
You're
tongue
having an
then.
episode, dude.
Bitch can't bite it all day. Now
What's
you want to
up with
bite
the
it.
bitch?
Right? So bite
You want to
that.
keep
Bite that and get it over with.
pathetic.
Okay, go away.
And as a viewer, I thought, oh, this is the end of their secret relationship and alliance because they're genuinely fighting and at each other's throats. But even I fell for their quote-unquote acting. Cut to them in the diary room, and it's all for strategy. It's not real. Well, some of it's probably real.
You know, I have no qualms about starting a fight with him. I don't want the house to start thinking that G and I have some sort of secret alliance because that would definitely screw me.
I think it's a strategy on both of our parts, really.
Number 4, the pressure cooker competition. If anyone from production is listening to this, bring this competition back. This competition makes for great TV. So the pressure cooker, basic premise is everyone goes into this box and you just stay in the box for as long as you can. And the last person in there wins. This competition goes on for a long time because people need to win this HOH. Somewhere after the 2-hour mark, June needs to go to the bathroom because she can't hold it any longer. Yeah, so June is peeing inside the cage with everyone around her. Really shortly after that, Robert drops out from a migraine. Then at this point, it's basically everyone in the house versus G. Everyone's kind of ganging up on G to try to get him to leave the cage. But G really doesn't want to let his alliance members down. G says he wants to make it believable that he didn't just throw the competition. So he says he'll drop off if Jack drops off first. So they agree. Jack drops off and then G drops off after. So then it's just Erica and Alison left. And then they're just making deals back and forth. And Alison basically lands on, don't put me up, and I won't put you up next week. Erica agrees, and after 6 hours and 33 minutes, Erica wins. Number 3. So it's week 7, and G is the HOH. And this week, there's a twist. The veto competition is going to happen before the nominations. So what they do is they separate everyone, and one at a time they're brought into the diary room. And Julie asks them, how much do you want this veto? And everybody pretty much wants it because everyone's in trouble this week. So Julie says, I'll give you this veto right now, but everyone in the house except for you will have to eat peanut butter and jelly for the rest of the season. Everyone kind of thinks about it, but pretty quickly everyone declines. So since everyone declines, Julie says, how about 2 weeks? People only have to be on peanut butter and jelly for 2 weeks now. Again, everyone declines. But Julie comes back a third time and says, what about 1 week? Would you take it? Everyone has peanut butter and jelly for 1 week except for you. And G actually accepts this one. G wants to secure his nom, so he's like, yeah, I'll take it.
Julie, that offer I will accept.
Then they reveal someone accepts, and Robert is pissed, which is funny because he's actually aligned with G. And they pretty quickly find out it was G. He apologizes and promises not to eat, even though production told him that he could eat. Which brings us to number 2, G's downfall. So before this, they were targeting Robert first because they thought he was a bigger threat, but after everything G did to win the veto, they're pretty pissed at him. So later in this episode, there's a luxury competition for McDonald's. So it was this competition where you would smash open these gnomes looking for golden tickets. What did Willy Wonka come out that year or something? But some of these gnomes had black dust in them, which would just eliminate people from the competition. So a bunch of people get eliminated, and it's everyone but G and Jack are left in the comp. So G should just throw it because Jack doesn't get to eat food, right? Wrong. G wins this competition, which pisses off people even more. And then later, G is eating after he said he wouldn't eat because of the peanut butter and jelly situation. And everyone knows this and is pissed off. And then G ends up going home the very next week on June's HOH. And they were working together the whole game. G, I think you won a little too much when you didn't need to, man. Number 1. So this one's about part 3 of the final 3 HOH. It's June and Alison, and they're playing against each other. But before the competition started, Robert threatens them both individually and basically says, if you cut me, I'm going to taint the jury against you. So the part 3 HOH comes down to a tiebreaker. June and Alison must have had something worked out because Alison just writes 0 and June watches her do it. And then June writes 1 million, which is obviously way over. Alison ends up winning and evicting Robert. And it's the old style endgame, so he goes to the jury and gives his opinions about who they should vote for. And June ends up winning 6-1. So did Robert actually taint the jury? I mean, maybe. It seems like they were potentially leaning June over Alison before he even got there, so it's hard to tell. But I think this is potentially June's best game move. I mean, the calculated risk here is insane. So good on you, June. That's a $500,000 risk I don't think most people are willing to take. And it did work out for you. So that was my top 10 Big Brother 4 moments. Were there any moments you think I should have included? How about something from the live feeds I missed? Let me know down in the comments section below. Remember to subscribe because I'm making a video for every Big Brother season. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
I'm sure if my grandmother was there, she would have totally scooped it up and we would have been eating that for dinner.